Rule number 2, dividing powers. Okay, here's an example. You have x to the power of 3 divided by x to the power of 2. Now x to the power of 3 is x times x times x, and x to the power of 2 is x times x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel the x divided by x, right? So x divided by x is 1, so that's what we're doing. We're just turning it into a 1 or canceling it. And x divided by x here is 1. Okay, so these become 1s, and so we have 1 times x, which is just x. Then we want you to notice that x is the same as x to the power of 1. And you should notice that x to the 3 divided by x to the 2 is the same as x to the 3 minus 2, which is 1. Okay, here's another example. Here's x to the power of 6 divided by x to the power of 4. And I'm going to rewrite the x to the 6 as x times x times x times x times x times x, and x to the power of 4 as x times x times x times x. All right, then we're going to start canceling them off. Okay, so those are all 1s. Okay, so we have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1, times x times x. Now x times x is x squared. Okay, so we're left with x squared. So notice that x to the 6 divided by x to the 4 is the same as x to the 6 minus 4, which is x to the 2. Here's another example. X to the 9 divided by x to the 7. Alright, here we have 9x's multiplying each other divided by 7x's multiplying each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel off x divided by x is 1. And then x divided by x is 1. And so we're going to end up with 7 1s multiplying each other. And we're going to be left with 2 x's that are multiplying each other. Okay, so these 7 1s multiplying each other is 1. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so we have 1 times x, which is once again x squared. Okay, so we end up with x times x, which is x squared. And notice that x to the 9 divided by x to the 7 is the same as x to the 9 minus 7. Okay, now this is where it gets a little bit different. Here we have x to the power of 2 over x to the power of 4. Okay, which is x times x divided by x times x times x times x. Once again, we're going to cancel. Okay, so I'm going to cancel these 2 x's and those 2 x's. Alright, and when we do, we get a 1. So I'm left with a 1 on top and x times x on the bottom. Okay, and x times x is x squared. So we're left with 1 over x squared. Okay, now the shortcut for this is once again we're going to subtract. But the trick is, the catch is, you're always going to subtract the smaller exponent from the larger exponent and put the answer where the larger exponent was. Okay, notice we have x to the 4, which is a larger power than x to the 2. The larger exponent is 4. It's larger than 2, which means we have more x's on the bottom than we have on the top, and after you finish canceling, you're going to end up with x's on the bottom. Okay, so we end up with 1 over x to the power of 2. Okay, so notice that x to the 2 divided by x to the 4 is the same as 1 over x to the 4 minus 2. Biggest exponent, subtract the smallest exponent, and put the answer where the biggest exponent was. And that's really all there is to it. Here's another example. X to the 4 divided by x to the 9. Okay, once again, that's 4 x's on the top, multiplying each other, divided by 9 x's on the bottom, multiplying each other, and then I'm going to just cancel like this. So x divided by x is 1, so I'm going to end up with 4 1s multiplying each other, which is going to leave us with a 1 on the top, and we end up with 5 x's on the bottom. Okay, so we end up with 1 over x to the power of 5. And notice that x to the power of 4 divided by x to the power of 9 is the same as 1 over x to the 9 minus 4. Once again, the larger exponent subtracts the smaller exponent, and the answer goes to where the larger exponent was. And the reason for that is because you have more x's where the larger exponent is, okay, or more y's, or whatever your base happens to be. Okay, so rule number 2 is when you have x to the n divided by x to the m, subtract the exponent, put your answer to where the largest exponent was. Okay, so if the larger one's on the top, just leave your answer on the top. Okay, so if n in this case is bigger than m. So if the larger exponent was on the top, you leave your answer on the top. So here's example 1. X to the 20 divided by x to the 12 is going to be x to the 20 take away 12, which is x to the 8. Okay, example 2. 3 to the 19 divided by 3 to the 16, subtract the exponents, 19 take away 16, put the answer on the top, 3 to the power of 3. Okay, which is 27. Okay, example number 3. Here we have 2 to the 9 times x to the 11 times y to the 7 divided by 2 to the 3, x to the 8, y to the 4. And we're going to subtract the exponents. So the bigger minus the smaller, 9 minus 3, is going to be 2 to the power of 6. X to the 11 minus 8. Well, we're about to run out of time. Stay tuned for part 2.